Some days call for some oomph to amplify your everyday look. Like when you want the look of false lashes without the extra effort. Reach for Thrive Cosmetics Liquid Lash Volumizer Mascara. Or when you want all eyes on your smile, keep Empower Gloss Ultra Glossy Lip Serum in your bag. It's a burst of 24-hour hydration that smooths like a serum, shines like a gloss, and can be worn sheer or layered. You'll also look and feel your best with Thrive Cosmetics. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin, not against it. And for every product purchased, Thrive Cosmetics donates to help communities thrive. So every time you use your favorite Thrive Cosmetics product, you're helping communities you care about too. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
Hello. I'm pretty good. How are you?
Not bad. We're recording this, I guess technically right before the ending, but basically immediately after the Thunder Spurs Game 5, which admittedly a little disappointing. Really hyped up as one of the games of the year, and I was excited. I thought about it all day. And it was a little boring. OKC just kind of wire to wire victory. A kind of boring Victor Wembanyama. Victor Wembanyama. Yama? Why can't I say his name? Game. And a typical OKC Thunder game, I felt like, where their defense really shined and they found ways to score even without two of their main ball handlers.
Yeah, and they got sharp shooting performances from some bench guys, Alex Caruso and Jared McCain. And, well, Jared McCain not a bench guy anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
But, they should
fire Daryl Morey again today. Just rehire him and then fire him again.
It unfortunately was a little bit boring. I was going to say, though, I've met a lot of Knicks fans over the past week, 24 hours, 48 hours. A lot of people outing themselves in my local circle as Knicks fans who didn't exist as Knicks fans before.
Okay.
So I'm almost more interested to talk about the Knicks right now, and I don't really know why that's the case. First of all, I think the framing of the soon-to-be... I mean, if the finals are probably going to be the Knicks and the Thunder, right? Probably. The Spurs, I'm going to root for them. We'll see if they can come back. I know that's sacrilegious to say right there.
No, I think one of the best hater options for this is OKC losing here and the Spurs losing in the finals, right?
Sure.
I feel like that is almost like some weird sort of ethical thing we should be rooting for.
It's just very funny that the Knicks are this absolutely massive media operation. I mean, New York, that we will all be rooting for against probably Oklahoma City, one of the smallest, if not the smallest media market in the NBA in the finals is just, it's very funny. It's a very funny narrative that has kind of come together in the NBA this year. And you know what? But I think probably all of us are going to be on the same page. Do you think, here's what I want to ask you, right? The Knicks, for those who, for some reason, weren't watching the series or whatever, completed their sweep of the Cavs. The Cavs, of course, analytically won the series, but the Knicks won the actual series.
Yeah.
What do you think we learned?
How many analytical games did the Suns win in the first round, do you think?
In the first round, unfortunately, in the first round, the Suns won 0 quarters analytically against the Thunder, not to mention 0 games.
I think maybe game 4 they won analytically.
What do you think? God, this brings up another thing. It was pointed out to me today. PHNX posted that graphic that I saw you quote tweeted about how the Suns beat the Knicks twice in the regular season, and it was then pointed out too the Suns technically beat the Thunder and the Spurs twice, so they beat all of those teams a total of 6 times in the regular season. Not that it means anything.
We beat the Thunder twice out of 9 total games.
What did we learn? What are we learning from the Knicks finals run? Can we start there? Do you think there's anything for the Suns or Suns fans to take away from their success?
I think very much yes. I would say significantly more than the other 2 teams left over. There's only one Victor Wembanyama, so you start there. You can't do that. You have one Wemby. That's your only option. You can't recreate him. The Suns can't go out and just find a Wemby and be that. There's the Thunder. There's a lot to learn from the Thunder overall from like a team building perspective. The Suns don't have whatever it takes to do that unless they decide to blow it all up like the Thunder did. They still don't even have the assets to do it the way they did.
Also, to a certain extent, the window on being able to do that is increasingly being closed with new apron rules and now new anti-tanking measures. It's like the avenues by which both the Thunder and the Spurs use themselves to rebuild so masterfully. It seems like for whatever reason, Adam Silver is trying to take those tools away from everyone else. So, but I don't even know if you can do that anymore.
But also, Shea is the best player in the NBA. So you're not just going to get the best player in the NBA either. But what the Knicks did, I think, is a little bit more, applicable to the Suns situation in that they built a team really not through the draft, through savvy trades, savvy free agency signings or re-signings, because they did sign guys to extensions as well, and they made it to where their team cost a lot of money, and they were willing to do that in order to keep this team together. But the other thing they don't have is like one of the top 5 guys,
No,
they
don't.
They have Jalen Brunson, and don't get me wrong, like he's playing at a top 5 guy level right now, but there are 15 guys that can play at a top 5 level for a certain stretch of time. And we've seen that from Devin Booker before. We've seen that from Anthony Edwards before. We've seen that from different guys who can reach those levels. And then there's guys like Jokic who are there all the time. There's guys like SGA who are there all the time. So you watch what they do and you can question what makes it successful. And I think part of it is, I think having a big who can shoot is like a big part of it. Like just being able to stretch the floor and force defenses to guard 5 out is it, and it's why Landry Shamet was so important, I think, to the Eastern Conference Finals as well. Just giving them a legitimate 5 out lineup where every guy can shoot, and he shot like 90% from 3.
Yeah, as opposed to having to like pray for Josh Hart to make threes or
exactly.
Or
and by the way, he made them anyway. So
yeah, Josh Hart's been awesome. I mean, honestly, if we want to, we won't spend a ton of time on this because obviously we're not a Knicks podcast. But like down the line, there were so many guys on the Knicks roster who, after previous times getting bounced in the playoffs, right? There were questions about, like, should they move on from each of these guys? You go down the line, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and, like, all of them have just been really good at kind of answering those questions.
I mean, I feel like we asked that, and Knicks fans asked that about Karl Anthony Towns twice a month. They had that conversation. It was just in Knicks spaces the entire year and his entire time in New York, I think. And that was a savvy trade, I think, that they made as well. So you look at what makes them successful and why they're good. One, they have Jalen Brunson. That's probably the most important piece no matter how you look at their team. You need one guy that can drive the offense. And the fact that he's able to rise to the occasion in fourth quarters over and over and over again really does matter. And I think is relevant to the Suns because the Suns need Devin Booker to do that more often. He has done that in the past, but they need him to do it more often going forward if they want to get to a level where they can compete at the highest level. They surrounded Jalen Brunson with players that complement what he's good at, and that means big wings who can defend. They have a big who can shoot and shoot. Well, I honestly think the most important piece to the Knicks is that they have a bunch of guys who are two-way guys. They are really good on both sides of the ball, and I think that's relevant to them. It's also relevant to the Spurs. It's also relevant to the OKC Thunder. Less so to the Thunder, weirdly, where the Thunder kind of get away with playing guys who are only defensive guys and do that more than any other team because their defense rises to such an insane level and SGA makes up so much offensively. But the Spurs and the Knicks, they just don't play guys who are bad. You really can't get away with just having a guy who can maybe only shoot threes and that's it. You kind of have to have 6, 7, ideally, guys who can do more than that, at least 5, who can do more than that when they catch the ball. And the Knicks just have a team full of those guys.
Well,
OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges.
You're talking about offense only, right?
Yes.
Like guy
you
who
have to be
catches
good on
the ball.
defense. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But a guy who catches the ball and isn't just a shooter, but also, can put the ball on the floor. I mean,
there's no PJ Tuckers playing right now.
Yeah.
It's OG Anunoby's and Mikal Bridges'.
Well, to that point, the Knicks beat the Cavs. So we should address the elephant in the room, right? This is not to take anything away from them, but they beat the Atlanta Hawks, the 76ers, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's a weak path historically. I think we can all agree to the NBA Finals. And if the Suns were going to take this same team-building approach, it stands to reason that in the vast majority of situations, they're not going to have a similarly weak path. Now, I don't want to take anything away from the Knicks because they didn't just beat these 3 teams in 7 games each. That would have been one thing. They kicked their ass and they won 11 games in a row or whatever. So they're in the finals for a reason. They've had a really, really good run. But of course, we all know that the Suns building for next year, if they want to get past the second round or whatever, they have to plan to beat probably OKC or San Antonio at some point. So it's just a different beast. It's a different challenge. But yeah, the Knicks played the Cavs last series, and a guy like Dean Wade, who is a player I like and has been linked to the Suns, I forget by who, as a potential free agent name, is exactly the type of player you're talking about, right? Just can only shoot and even then kind of shoot, otherwise do nothing on offense type of guy, and just gets totally played off the floor at a certain point in the playoffs because you're playing 4-on-5.
Yeah, and if you're not hitting shots in those moments, all of a sudden your offense becomes useless. That type of thing really matters. And and the other side of that is you can't just be an offensive guy who shoots really well but can't play any defense at all. And no matter how much it angers you to hear me say this, Landry Shamet tries on defense in a way that guys
I'm not
that are
angry
often,
anymore. Landry has earned his stripes with the series.
He has. He really has. I mean, and shout out to him because he really found a really, really nice role in that team, and maybe it goes away in the finals, right? Maybe because guys can just catch fire for short periods of time, and that's really helpful. But he had one game in Phoenix where he helped them win a playoff game as well. He's essential to that win, and obviously he was insane in the Eastern Conference Finals in an unsustainable way. But he also really is good at that chaser role. There I go, saying it again, on defense where he is able to.
Now I'm a little mad.
He's able to dodge screens in a way that guys his size, it's not Tyus Jones out there. So you can't just be a guy who is just an offensive weapon and doesn't do anything if you want to get significant minutes in this level of the NBA. Maybe this is obvious, but it has changed. I genuinely think it has changed over the last few years, where the sort of I play defense, but I only can catch and shoot and only from the corner type players don't work anymore. You have to move around more on offense in order to be successful offensively in this game. That means 1 or 2 dribbles. That means the ability to pass the ball when you are attacking a closeout, which I've seen in the Knicks in particular, is so important. That when they catch, and if there's a closeout coming, but there's still a back line of defense, every single guy that plays on that team can make that next pass so quickly, and that's what makes their offense churn. And, OKC does that too, to some extent, and I think that the Spurs are actually not as good at that, but they have a really young team and Victor. So, admittedly, now I watching this happen, I look a little bit at Rasheer Fleming, for example. And then I have thought to myself, what is the path for him to get there offensively? And how confident am I in that he could actually play those minutes in a playoff game? And I think, and then, by the way, the same for Malawach. This is both of these guys. I'm kind of looking at them. And then we can talk about other players too. But like I'm trying to envision it, and then I'm trying to figure out how likely it is, and then I'm trying to figure out what level of like actually investing in these guys and the time it takes to get them there is worth it, and what level maybe you capitalize on some value and trade them. Like I have thought about that in watching these playoffs. I'm not exactly sure where I side on this. I'm just trying to really display just how much watching the way the game looks now has impacted how I'm looking at the Suns building for the future.
Sure. I think that's a good conversation topic, and we'll probably touch on it more later in this episode. I do want to shelve it for a little while, though. Just in terms of other things that we learned from the Knicks this year, you mentioned having a big who shoots.
It's so important.
It's funny to me because you have been pretty down on Karl Anthony Towns in the past.
Yeah.
But the way that Cat augments particularly a superstar like Jalen Brunson, who is not all that dissimilar from Devin Booker. Like the comparisons between those two don't just stop at neither of them are top 10 players in the NBA, which is true. Neither of them are top 10 players.
The points and the assists are like pretty identical over the last few years.
Yeah, and they don't overly rely on 3-point shooting. And honestly, it's a little bit unfortunate because, you know, Jalen Brunson is like 6'3" and Book is, or 6'2", and Book is a few inches taller than him. But the extent to which both guys at this point in their careers have to rely on the finesse over just being able to get downhill and, like, you know, shove it down your throat like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would. Like, both of these guys really benefit from having that stretch big to just open up the floor for them and give them some easier lanes and make life a lot easier in the middle of the floor. And, you know, we've talked for years and years about how awesome would it be for Book to play with a big who can shoot for the first time since, you know, I don't know, 2019 or whatever, but it still hasn't happened. I think, you know, maybe that's part of the idea of what they want to do with Malawach, but you can really see just watching the Knicks, like, it is possible for a team to really excel with just one kind of heliocentric star guard or whatever, right? But, like,
when it works, right?
In terms of fit, right? Karl Anthony Towns and what he can do offensively as a second option does way more to make Jalen Brunson's life easier than another guard next to him would, right? Like a Bradley Beal type when the Suns had Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, obviously, right? Like that sort of thing, that sort of pairing just didn't work. But if you're going to look for potential second bananas to put next to Devin Booker, you know, maybe there's a formula to follow in terms of the big who can shoot and also put the ball on the floor. Unfortunately, those guys don't grow on trees, but we can think about it at least.
Well, if the Milwaukee Bucks trade Giannis and they have Miles Turner there, who maybe doesn't want to play for a team that is just going to be bad next year or is just looking at the future a little bit, I don't know. You know, like, if we're just going to say, just for example, and I'm just going to throw this out there, Jalen Green for Miles Turner, if we're just going to say that feels like selling it low on Jalen Green in a way, but at the same time, it's also like there's only a few guys who are as tall as Miles Turner that can make threes, and at least you can squint and say their defense is pretty good. And maybe even there's a world where Miles Turner plays with Malawach, like as a two big lineup where the defense actually kind of makes sense. You know, and the question is, what else? Like, I almost like wonder what else could you add to that? Does the Milwaukee Bucks, the salary is less? Do the Milwaukee Bucks have anything else the Suns could get out of them if they gave Jalen Green to them for Miles Turner?
What does Turner
does
make?
It make sense? $25 million this year. I think it goes up.
So
it's
they're
like
around 25. They're taking on extra salary. Okay.
They're taking on extra salary, so you'd have to take something from them. You know, maybe you try to figure out if there's something else there that you can get. Or maybe you try to get Miles Turner and Bobby Portis, you actually add salary to it. You know, and you try to get both of those guys in some way.
I think what makes that idea interesting is, you know, when we talk about, we're going to get into kind of some of the slop from the past week, but if the Suns have a mid-level exception and, you know, what they're able to, that's a big if, by the way, and we're going to cover that in a second, but like if they're able to actually use that money, what can they use that money on in free agency? I think there's a decent amount of like kind of quote unquote Jalen Green replacements that they could use that money on, and it would go a much further way towards that than some of the other archetypes that they could try to fill with that money of say $10
Yeah.
to $15 million. So it's an interesting thought.
It's just one of those things where when one of those guys is available, you should probably at least take the opportunity to take a look and see what's out there, because it's just like you said, we've never seen it with Devin Booker, and it would be something that could be really interesting to see with him. I also give a shout out, by the way, to those who believed in Mike Brown. I really thought it was not an upgrade over Thibodeau, and it's very clear that it was an upgrade. Their offense moves in a way that I've never seen it move, and a lot of credit of that goes to him, and I think what he learned with the Warriors in particular. Anything else that you learned from any of the teams left over that you want to talk about before we jump into some of the other stuff?
Real quick on the Cavs and the demise of the Cavs. I want to offer you an opportunity real quick, actually. Do you want to repeat what you said to me in public and what was maybe your worst take of all time that I heard the other day? Do you want to talk about it? Or
I don't remember what you're referring to.
I'm referring to a certain bearded player who plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
What, in public, I said something to you about him?
No, you said this in private. I'm asking if you would like to say it in public, but I'm not going to put you on blast if you don't
I think
want
we
to.
should save that till next week, because there's a possibility that we could have an opportunity to talk about it. But it's
James
not
Harden,
me. You
I will
can't
just say,
pin that all on me.
That's fine. James Harden had a very bad playoffs. And,
No, he had a James Harden playoffs.
Yeah, no,
it was bad,
that's
but like it's also exactly who he is.
Did you see the interview he gave where, well, I mean, just like the press availability where they kind of asked him to do a self-assessment? And that's the thing with Harden, man, is it's not just the fact that he chokes and the stats are bad. He's also like, yeah, I thought my defense was super solid. And, I fit into a role. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, dude, can you take no accountability at all? So really tough look there for that guy.
Yeah,
I don't know how many defenders he really has left, but just a tough look.
You get to game 4 in any series with James Harden, he's booking his vacation already. And you could tell. That's just how he plays.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 Show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
If you care about coffee and how it's made, check out Alchemy Roast. They roast in small batches and source their beans responsibly, focusing on flavor instead of mass production. The result is coffee that's balanced, well-developed, and easy to drink, whether you brew at home every day or just want something better than grocery store coffee. You can order online at alchemyroaster.com, and if you use the promo code TIMELINE at checkout, you'll get 10% off your order. Go now to alchemyroaster.com, my favorite coffee, and use the promo code TIMELINE at checkout. Get 10% off, support a local Phoenix business, and get the best coffee you can buy. Let's talk about... Actually, let's talk to this Gambo. This is the time of year, by the way, I feel like every year this time of year, I start giving shout-outs to Gambo because of how important he is to the content that we have, because he gives us stuff to talk about every week when there's nothing to talk about. And this week he went on the radio. It was like 5 days ago now, but he said quite a few things related to the Phoenix Suns, and I kind of want to go through each one of these one by one. Shout out to Spencer on our Discord who aggregated this for us.
We're calling this segment Gambo GPT, is what it is for the slop that he gives us to keep our podcast alive. No, I really think it's the combination of, Gambo obviously has a certain runtime that he needs to fill, of course, but is also plugged in and has connections.
Yeah.
And I think he does a good job in these segments of setting the tone for what fan expectations should be for the summer. And now we can kind of dissect them a little bit.
Let's see. Do you have one of his comments that you want to start with? Because there's like 6 or 7 of them here that we could.
I don't have the list in front of me.
Okay, let's start here.
I'll
just go. I'll go in the order Spencer gave it to us on our Discord here. The Suns will not trade future firsts to get into this year's first round. So they have next year, as an example, that they could trade based on all the things I looked at. I think they can trade next year's pick, and this year's draft supposed to be good. Next year's draft, not supposed to be that good. But
I don't take much stock into those sorts of evaluations, especially like if you want to make judgment calls about that, like in terms of the top 5 or top 10 prospects in the draft, fine. But I don't believe really that there's, I don't know, maybe people are working with different like statistical models or something that they have something to base this on. I just don't believe there's really that significant of a difference between the 25th best prospect in this year's draft or next. I
mean, that could be true because it's like you're just trying to strike gold at that point, find the needle in the haystack. But so this is something that you're cool with. Like you think the Suns shouldn't really use. It's very specific in his wording, and I didn't hear it, of course. But the fact that they're not trading future first to get into this year's first round doesn't preclude the fact that they might trade a future first in general.
No, it's possible. To me, it's not even about this year versus next year and comparing the draft classes. It's more so a philosophical discussion about do you believe, how firmly do you believe the Suns should be going for it right now, right? And I mean, I guess I want them going for it in the sense that I want them to be more competitive than they were last year. But I don't want forget next year's draft for a second. They could trade their 2032 or 2033 for whichever one it is first round pick unprotected to get into the first round this year if they wanted to, and I think that would be a really dumb idea in terms of kind of selling on their long term future potential for not that much gain. So in general, I want them to move up. I don't want them to stay at 47. If they can get into the late first round by moving a role player, great. But like obsessing over it by trading other future first round picks to get there, I just don't think it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I agree. Like part of me is like, I don't know enough about the draft to know if this is a good idea or not, because I don't know anything about next year's draft, of course, and I barely have just started to dip my toes into this year's draft. We're going to have to cover that pretty soon, by the way, because the draft is around the corner by content standards here, so we're going to have to cover that. Maybe we'll go live on our Discord for the...
Less than a month away, and I think we will. I think we'll have to.
Yeah,
or
we'll
do
go
a
live on the
Spaces
Discord for the draft.
Do Spaces still exist? I never
They
use
do,
it.
but
Okay.
anyone can join that.
That's true.
Maybe we limit it to the people we know. We know how crazy those people are, so at least we know they're crazy. The devil you know. I'm curious how you feel about these. I'm going to say these two together. Their intention is to keep Grayson and Royce and Highsmith, which I think we expected based on the fact that they signed Highsmith to a 2-year deal. So that's Grayson, Royce, and Highsmith. And then he said they want to keep Grayson for his ability to drive to the paint, I think, which makes sense. There's only a few guys on this team that can step beyond the 3-point line, and Grayson is one of them. So I'm curious your reaction to this. Grayson, Royce, and Highsmith, and Grayson's ability to drive to the paint. I'm curious your reaction to this, and I, of course, have some thoughts as well.
I respect Grayson's ability to drive to the paint. I feel like we highlighted it all season long, especially the deceleration that he's worked on so well, and tried to make note of the fact that, I mean, look at Jalen Brunson, right? Good drivers in the NBA aren't necessarily just athletic freaks. They're people who understand how to manipulate the physics and the space of the court. And I'm not saying that Grayson is Jalen Brunson, but I do think that he has a tiny little bit of that in his game. And unfortunately is the third best driver on the Suns, right? After Book and Jalen Green. And it's probably not particularly close. Am I missing anyone?
No, I think that's right.
So, yeah, I mean, I absolutely respect, Grayson's ability to do that. I like Grayson Allen. It feels like he's worn so many hats and played so many roles in just 3 years with the Suns. And, I like the fact that he's always been willing to kind of approach new roles and take on new responsibilities without ego. That being said,
Grayson, Royce, and Highsmith.
Exactly. Okay, so the math ain't mathin' a little bit. right?
It could be math, and I'll explain what I think. But what do you think?
Okay, I'll let you get there in a second, but let's just set the stage, right? So this idea that the Suns are going to keep Grayson and Royce and Haywood Highsmith. Currently, the Suns have $185 million tied up in 11 players next year. $185 million. That includes the $22 million of dead money that's paid to Bradley Beal and Nas Little. By the way, dead money going to Nas Little until like 2030.
It's embarrassing.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So what's the significance of that? $185 million is you're already $15 million away from the luxury tax. So this is relevant to another thing that Gambo said here, right? But if you want access to the non-tax paying mid-level exception that allows you to sign quote unquote a good free agent, then you need to not be a tax-paying team. $185 million, $16 million away from the luxury tax. Oh, and you also have to re-sign Mark Williams and Colin Gillespie and Jordan Goodwin and stay underneath that $201 million mark. It's just not going to happen at that level, right? Something has to fold. There has to be either a couple of free agents who you're okay with not bringing back out of the Mark Williams, Jordan Goodwin, Colin Gillespie group.
This certainly signals that one guy is probably not going to come back at least, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Or
unless they think they can get them for very cheap.
Or you're totally fine with foregoing this idea of having the non-tax paying mid-level exception, and you're going to be a tax-paying team and you'll have the tax-paying mid-level exception, which is like $6 million instead of 15, and you're just cool with that, which if that's the case, then fine. Although you probably don't want to be in the repeater tax. So I would think Ishbia still wants to avoid the luxury tax in general for this next season at least. Or the most likely option, in my opinion, is that someone somewhere gets dumped in a trade. Not necessarily dumped for, $0, but, a cost-saving measure through a Royce O'Neal trade or a Grayson Allen trade or a Dylan Brooks trade or a Jalen Green trade. But someone, somewhere, something has to give. They can't just pay all of these guys. It's just not going to happen. So go ahead, give me 5 more Jalen Green trades right now.
It just feels like it points to a Jalen Green trade. That's what it feels like to me. The Suns don't have a lot of contracts that they can use to get off of salary. Grayson and Royce are 2 of them. And then the other guys are Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green. And I don't think, I've said this to you before, I think Dylan Brooks is the second most safe player on this team for next season. It's possible that's not true just based on the fact that he probably has the second most trade value as well. Like, he's probably the only guy that you could for sure get a first round pick for from a good team that just desperately needs somebody like him. But you look at the salaries and you look at what he said about Grayson's ability to drive to the paint. And look, they need more than 2 guys who can drive to the paint no matter what. So Jalen Green still has a role on this team regardless. But I just start to wonder, what's the plan there if they're going to keep 2 of the guys that they can use to shed salary in order to keep their guys? And by the way, one of the guys that they want to re-sign, Colin Gillespie, started at point guard most of the season. And you can't start all 3 of them forever. So if they want to re-sign Colin Gillespie, they want to keep Grayson, Royce, and Highsmith, it's a lot of salary going to those guys. And it just makes me wonder what's going to happen with Jalen Green.
A lot of salary going to 6'4" guys.
Yes, exactly. And it just makes me question what the plan is there. And like the idea of, I'm going to say the trade I just said again, just because it's the one we just brought up, not because I think it's going to happen, but Miles Turner making, approximately $7-8 million, whatever it is, less than Jalen Green. That's the kind of trade that they could make that actually allows them to keep guys and maybe re-sign them. And, I don't know. Maybe that is the value proposition there. Like, what you get from Milwaukee outside of Miles Turner is the ability to re-sign your guys. And that's maybe where it would become not selling low on Jalen Green, because that's what you can point at as the value. You also get to keep Jordan Goodwin. You also get to keep Colin Gillespie. And maybe you don't need to re-sign Mark Williams anymore at that point, or maybe you get him for $8-9 million and it's worth it to keep him. But, I look at I just look at that situation. It just makes me wonder. Am I wrong? Am I being like, I don't know.
No, of course not. Of course you're not wrong. You are like neglecting the possibility that Gambo is just because it's kind of his role in the front office. You know, he's saying they really like Grayson Allen. They really like Royce O'Neal. So someone's going to, not that opposing front offices are like listening to Arizona
local sports radio.
Yeah, but like, so, you know, the subtext being obviously, so you're going to have to give us a first round pick to part with one of these guys. You can't just have them for free.
Sam Presti's going, but what did Vince Marotta say about him?
So I think it's very possible that that's the case too, right? That they just want to kind of inflate the value of those guys because they understand that they're valuable role players. I mean, a team like Cleveland, you know, I'm talking about how Dean Wade can't do anything on offense. You know, I bet they would like Royce O'Neal right now. I bet they would view Royce O'Neal as an upgrade. So I think there are teams out there that you could kind of get to take the bait if you wanted to.
Not that team though.
If you wanted to take that approach. Oh, maybe not Cleveland because of the whole Dan Gilbert thing.
Yes.
That's fine. I forgot those two teams are banned from trading with each other. But
yeah, who knows? Maybe it will happen. But yeah. This is the one I think you were alluding to. They plan to be aggressive with the MLE. Now add all these up together. And I think Gambo is not the type that would be like, and I mean the non-tax-paying MLE, not the tax-paying. No, he's not going to clarify on that.
You're so right. That's really important to. He
might
to know.
when he gets a text message from someone and he has to clarify. Like he might clarify later on which one we're talking about there. But the difference between if he just said MLE and if he means that, the full non-tax paying MLE, which is what, like 14 million now? It's a lot now.
It's 50. It's 50. So the basic difference, it sounds like, oh, what's the difference if you're a taxpayer or non-taxpayer? It can't be that much. It's kind of a lot. Yeah. If you're a non-tax paying, if you have the full mid-level exception, it starts at about $15 million and you can offer contracts up to 4 years. Whereas if you're a tax paying team, it's only $6 million.
So much less. It's like a third.
It's only $6 million and only 2 years on the contracts. So 2 years, $12 million versus a maximum of 4 years, $60 million. Huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if they really do plan on being aggressive with the full MLE, they have to get rid of some salary. And that would probably mean a Jalen Green trade like the one I said and shedding Royce. You know, because you can't do all of that. And maybe you do those things together. You find a reason that maybe trading Royce into someone else's cap space is worth it because you have a guy lined up to sign with the MLE. But look, I don't have a list of free agents in front of me. We're going to do a free agency preview at some point, but it's not going to be today. But I'm going to say this. If they have the full MLE, the free agency preview gets a lot more interesting than if they just have the tax-paying MLE, which will still actually be kind of interesting. It's been a while since the Suns had actual free agency money to play with, and even $6 million is more than they had for their second apron years that we just came out of because they didn't have anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's not going to be, Nigel Hayes Davis as the star of the offseason or whatever. Who's the best free agent the Suns have gotten in the past 2 or 3 years? Tyus Jones. Unfortunately, we were so excited for Tyus Jones.
It felt like a heist. Like a heist. And lesson learned there.
Yuta Watanabe.
By the way, I want to mention.
We were so excited for Yuta Watanabe.
Yeah.
You could get a real player for $6 million.
And you, by the way, if you have room to use your MLE but not the full $15 million, you can offer up to whatever you have before you reach the tax-paying level. So if they have $12 million before they get to the tax, they can offer a team in the MLE $12 million or whatever. Like they don't have to have all of that space. So they have options there.
There's a group. Yeah. There's a group here that I alluded to the idea that you could replace Jalen Green. There are a lot of guys available in free agency this year that I'm not going to just say are better than Jalen Green. They certainly don't have maybe the same ceiling of if it all clicks into place for him and he's really able to like own in on his decision making while also being like an out of this world athlete and an amazing shooter. And like the guys I'm about to name they don't have the same potential. But if you could get a guy like Colin Sexton or Anthony Simons or Kobe White or Quentin Grimes, I mean, these are not like the premier free agents of this summer. I think realistically, all 4 of those guys that I just named are probably going in that $10 to $15 million a year range. Mm-hmm. And what all of them have in common is an ability to keep an offense afloat, keep an offense afloat, and score 18 to 20 points per game. All of those guys can do that, and I think that's pretty interesting if you have the ability to flip Jalen somewhere, but then still get a guy who can inject some easy offense and into either your half court or transition offense and hit a lot of threes. All those guys hit threes too.
It's interesting. It's, a lot of this stuff points to stuff. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite name out of those guys I just mentioned?
I think probably Coby White. Yeah, I love Colin Sexton though too, but I don't think you can start Colin Sexton really. I think you could probably get away with starting Coby White on the Suns.
I think with some of these guys, the idea is that if you brought in Anthony Simons, it's okay, you're our sixth man.
That's a 6 man. Yeah.
So it
and Colin Sexton as well. I think is a 6 man. He's just too small. Kobe's small too, but he really, I don't know. I just seen him. He was also excellent in their playing game.
So for those who forgot, Coby White was traded to Charlotte halfway through the season. He played 19 minutes a game post All-Star break, in which he averaged 15.6 points.
Yeah,
and 3 assists in 19 minutes. That is 29 points and 5.7 assists per 36 minutes in a bench role, which is just crazy of a guy to just go out there and not give a fuck and, take 10 threes a game. And also gets to the rim.
That's what he likes to do. And he can, and he's fast. He pushes the pace in a way that, Jalen Green can as well. So Coby White can do that. You can really play fast. Actually, if you remember when the Suns hired Jordan Ott, I really was advocating for a way for the Suns to look at trading for Coby White, because I think if you look at the way the Cleveland Cavaliers were successful pre-James Harden, a big piece of that was Darius Garland. And when I was looking for a player who could sort of do a lot of what Darius Garland can do, maybe not quite as well, I really zeroed in on Coby White as a guy that can sort of recreate that in a way that could fit really well with what Jordan Ott's trying to do. And I still believe that, even after a season with really seeing Jordan Ott coach, I still definitely believe that he's a good fit for what he's trying to do.
I wrote down some forward names as well, because really if the Suns have this money theoretically, I think there's a world in which they're interested in bringing in a different third string center or a third string point guard, but those are going to be veteran minimum signings, I think, realistically, right? Do we really see a world where they throw all their money at a starting center if they had this money? At Mitchell Robinson or something, I think that's probably not going to happen.
I don't really think so, but yeah, maybe.
So, I think what's much more likely to happen is that either they target the high-octane offensive guard, kind of some of the guys we were talking about, or they go after a forward. And I'm less impressed generally with this list of names that I came up with, but there are some forwards as well. Let me just throw out some names for you, and you can tell me one at a time if you like or dislike the name. Dean Wade, who I started with from the Cavs.
I like it if it's a cheap contract.
Yeah, I think Dean Wade to me, especially after the playoffs, feels more like a taxpayer mid-level exception.
He's Royce but taller, basically.
Yeah,
which makes him better, honestly.
And honestly, Royce is better offensively, which is kind of crazy. So I certainly don't view him as you need to pay $12 million a year for that guy, because he's playing 10 minutes a game in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I don't think I like Dean Wade. I think he's pretty good, but I am in the mindset of watching, the teams that are successful now and going, would he play for OKC, San Antonio, or the Knicks? And the answer is no. But right. That's not the standard I can hold everyone to. The Suns are trying to get incrementally better, not just immediately rocket themselves to be, a contender.
I think Tobias Harris is probably in this range at this point. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think that's definitely fair to say.
Played 28 minutes a game as a starter for a 60-win team this season.
I think he seems to be a culture guy as well. Everyone talks about him as if he's a culture guy that really helps your team's culture. So I like Tobias Harris, and I think Tobias Harris as a $30 million a year player, which I think he has been or close to it, not great. $11 million a year?
Yeah, just a bit too much of a ball stopper. Has always taken too many mid-range shots and not enough threes, although he's gotten a little better over the years. But, obviously not really a defensive stopper at this age. But yeah, at $15 million a year, theoretically, if you had that, I think it would work.
It's not bad.
Kelly Oubre.
I like Kelly Oubre.
You floated the idea of a return. What Kelly has is the Knicks factor of this is a two-way guy who can defend and shoot.
He can defend, he can shoot. He's not great. Like, you can't start him. So I think the contract is the question about how much value. I guess you could start him, but he's not going to start on a great team. He can start on a good team.
And but that is the question
the first
of
wing off the bench is pretty
that
good.
Is the great question that I think we're going to get to in a minute are the Suns' aspirations to be a good team or a great team? But first, just a couple more names. John Collins.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Kind of a weird fit on any team.
He shot a lot of threes last year. Let me look it up. And he shot pretty well from three, which I think changes a lot of the prospect of who he is. So if he can be like a genuinely good 3-point shooter, let's see. No, only 3.2 attempts from three, but he shot 40%. And he shot 40% basically the last 2 years.
He's gotten way better as a 3-point shooter over the years.
So
and it's still just like
pretty valuable.
Just a really valuable pick and roll finisher. Yeah. It's just a shame about his defense because it would be so awesome if John Collins was a real 4-5 hybrid who you could trust to, like run small ball lineups, but he's really just a power forward through and through. He's got T-Rex arms and will never be a rim protector.
Or rebounder,
and that's just,
really, yeah.
Or rebounder, and that's it's just kind of what he is. Rui Hachimura, one last name.
I mean, yes. I mean, he's
I don't know. I think I'm a little iffy
3-point shooter.
Rui really is an excellent 3-point shooter. I'm just kind of iffy on him. But for like 15, like I don't know if he. Some of these guys, as I talk about these names, it's like you're bringing in experience. You're bringing in guys who like have skills offensively. Certainly they have skills, but like, are you taking away from some of the defensive identity that the Suns tried to build out, that they tried so hard to build out over the last year of like really crashing hard for offensive rebounds and hustling after loose balls? Some of these guys like Rui and Tobias Harris, even like I'm not sure if I can envision all of those guys doing those same things, but I think they probably all fit into this general price range, which is why I'm bringing them up.
Yeah. Do they need a starting forward is the next question. Because the goal for the Suns, according to Gambo, is to play Fleming for 25 minutes a game next year. And maybe even start at that point if you're playing 25 minutes a game, right?
Yeah, it's possible.
What do you? What's your first reaction to that?
That doesn't seem like a great idea.
That seems
like if you're trying to be like a borderline 50-win team next year. That seems like a stretch, right? It seems like a stretch.
It seems, honestly, it seems like something that, one, Jordan Ott will not do, and two, if they're building the team in order to force him to do that, means the team's going to be bad. You know?
Yeah, that's fair.
I want Fleming to play. I want him to earn those minutes, and I want his minutes to go up as he makes correct decisions on the floor over and over and over again. But if you start out by gifting him 25 minutes a game, that's what a tanking team does. I'm sorry. He's not there yet. He was good and showed a ton of flashes, but these guys that show flashes, they need that development time, and that's not always by gifting them minutes. There's other ways to do it too. And maybe he earns it anyway, and he does play 25 minutes a game.
That's the ideal situation, is you bring in fucking Tobias Harris and then halfway through the season say to yourself, actually, Rasheer is better, and he steals his minutes. That would be great.
Yeah, and then you still have Tobias Harris to play 20 minutes off the bench or whatever. Like, it's fine.
Just throwing out a name there. I like to, Tobias isn't like my favorite free agent or whatever, but that would be awesome if something like that happened.
Yeah, and I think with Fleming, I feel like I have to be like delicate because of the way Suns fans love him so much, but there wasn't a lot there offensively for him.
Well, I wanted to bring this up again.
He can make threes, and he can occasionally finish in the pick and roll,
and
but there's just not a lot there right now.
And he crashes. I wanted to bring this up again because, you know, we were talking about the Knicks earlier this season and how everyone in the Knicks is able to attack.
They have
And I think,
so many counters. Yeah.
Right, that's fine. The perfect comparison there is OG Anunoby. Well, actually, to an extent, it's Mikal Bridges, too. Mikal Bridges did not come into the league as this well-rounded offensive product, even though he was like 22 years old as a rookie.
And OG's bigger, too, in the way that Fleming is bigger, like sort of beefier.
OG in particular, I would say, took like 4 years. Like, it wasn't until the end of his rookie contract that in his fourth season, he averaged 16 points per game. And he shot 40% from deep and 2 assists. And I think that was the first time that people kind of understood maybe this is more than just a 3-and-D guy, you know, but maybe he has a little bit more offensive juice to him. But he certainly wasn't that guy in year 1. He certainly wasn't that guy in year 2. I am looking now, and OG played 20 minutes a game in his sophomore season, which is pretty impressive. And that Raptors team was good. They had Kawhi Leonard at the time, so they won the championship, you may remember. But yeah, just counting on 25 minutes a game, I don't know. I think 20 might be reasonable. 25's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe the number is not what's important, right? Maybe that Gambo was told Fleming's is going to be important and he ascribed his own number to it because like it's hard to say that a front office shouldn't do that kind of thing where they're like dictating minutes for a guy. I just don't like that idea in general.
What did he play this year? 15?
I mean, he didn't play a lot of the season. So you start there, but yeah, let's see.
Right, like does it count next year? He played 12 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Does it count next year if he only plays, 50 games again because he's getting a lot of getting a lot of DNPs, but technically when he does play, he like has to be a starter.
I would say that is not the spirit of what Gambo is saying here.
That's fair. If
the letter of the law, yes, maybe, but
if Rasheer is your opening day starter getting 25 minutes a game, you are not a playoff team. I'm sorry. You're just not. So that would be very concerning.
And that's fine.
That's fine. He needs room to grow. I think he should be on the roster, and I think he should be given a chance. Absolutely.
And he still has very good potential, yes, but yeah.
Right, yeah.
But we're talking about a player who, he needs a lot more in order to be a starter on a good team. And he can get there, but there needs to be counters. He needs to move the ball quickly. He needs to continue to shoot well, but he needs to shoot well from more areas on the floor than just the corners. And then the screening and rolling, the diving to the rim, I think needs to be utilized more. And that could add a dynamic to his offense that could actually be great and would really benefit, by the way, from another big who can shoot, whether that's Malawach or if they bring in another big who can actually shoot around him, then you can use him in that way. And then he becomes sort of a multi-tool offensive player. I think the defense is going to be good. I think that he is capable of being a great defender as early as next season. I think the rebounding is going to be good because it already was. And I do think that there is a part of me that is aware of how everyone felt this time last year about Ryan Dunn.
I was just going to bring his name up. I was going to say, what would happen if Ryan Dunn was just gifted a starting spot this year off the back of his rookie season?
And everyone was so high on him last year. I think a lot of people would say, well, no, we weren't. No, but yes, I remember Suns fans. And because I was the one that was like, his defense wasn't even at the level that we expected it to be. And that's factoring in that he was a rookie. So I was trying to talk people down off of that a little bit. I am higher. Admittedly, I'm higher on Rasheer Fleming now than I was on Ryan Dunn last year. Are you?
Yeah, I think I am, but only because like Rasheer doesn't have the same massive shooting flaws that, like with Ryan, it was like we see that he's a 48% free throw shooter and only taking wide open threes. And like those are just huge existential threats to your ability to stay on the floor and be an NBA role player. Now, I still think Ryan can carve out a nice career as a role player too, but yeah, I think Rasheer just makes more sense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Like, I don't think, and I had another topic I wanted to get to. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll save it for next week, actually, because it's more of an existential question than anything else, and we probably don't have time to do it here. But this is one of those guys that when I think about what the future of this team is, it's really going to be interesting to see what they do with him. I actually think he probably has pretty good trade value right now, and I don't think they should trade him. Let me just start there. I don't think they should trade him. But, if they can find something that is a better fit for what they're trying to do, maybe they would. I don't know. I think they're actually pretty high on him, and this Gambo report kind of points to that. And, yeah, it's just going to be really interesting to see what they do. 25 minutes a game next year, I'm going to say that one is not going to happen, though. Unless something terrible goes wrong next year, I think. Right?
Or if he just comes out guns a-blazing and he's so good and by February he's getting 25 minutes a game, fine, that's different. But if he's playing 25 minutes a game on October 22nd or whenever opening night is, that's really scary for the Suns' ability to compete in the Western Conference, assuming that we have this competitive conference and everyone there aren't going to be tanking teams anymore, right, supposedly, so everyone's going to be trying their hardest.
Yeah. Last one from Gambo. He said the Suns will target teams with multiple picks that don't need them as trade partners. And then he mentioned the Spurs having multiple second-round picks. And
he stole that from me. I mentioned the Spurs last week.
It's really true. He did. And then he also mentioned that the Suns can trade a future second for a higher second-round pick this year. So they're picking 47th. We spent a long time in our last podcast, I don't remember if that was Patreon or main feed, but talking about the possibilities of potentially moving up from that second-round pick, the 47th pick, just like they did to pick somebody like Rasheer Fleming. Mm-hmm. And maybe they don't need to. Maybe the guy they want falls. There's a lot of background agent stuff in the second round that once you get past the first 5-6 picks of the second round, a lot of those guys can kind of dictate where they go in a weird way compared to...
Yeah, it's true.
In the first round. So maybe they don't have to move up and they still get the guy they want because they have agent connections that allow it to happen. But
that's
yeah,
fair.
maybe they do move up because they have a guy that they want to target that's going to be picked in pick 34 or something.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, right? We talked about, what was it, 11 players, $185 million on the books. They need cheap labor.
They do.
Somewhere.
They do.
Especially if we're going to talk about, certain guys are about to get more expensive. If they really want to bring back Gillespie and Jordan Goodwin, maybe Mark Williams, maybe a mid-level guy, right? So the cheap labor needs to come from somewhere. They need a pick this year, a rookie, partially for my own personal enjoyment, just because we love being able to cover Summer League, and we love, new shiny toys to get to talk about, and who's going to be the Rasheer Fleming of next year, and yada, yada. At the 47 spot, that player doesn't have much of a chance of being very good. It did happen with Toumani Camara.
Mm-hmm. It was James Jones.
That was James Jones. Unfortunately, they traded that pick away. It's kind of happening with Oso Ighodaro, who's picked 40th overall, right? Mm-hmm. But
also James Jones. Yeah.
I'd certainly feel better about their ability to do it again. Oso wasn't James Jones.
Was he not? Okay, maybe you're right. You're right.
No, Oso was the current regime.
Okay.
But I'd feel better about their ability to do it, with, say, the 33rd pick or whatever San Antonio has early in the second round. So targeting these contending teams that have 3 or 4 picks just makes sense. These teams just don't need all of these picks. And I do think the Suns have more than enough assets to make that sort of thing happen. It's once you start talking about I think they have a couple million that they could pay in cash. Sure.
Yeah, so
I think
it's once you talk about pick in cash. Yeah.
If your idea is, let's call up OKC and get the 12th pick, you're probably shooting a little too high at that point. But to get into the back end of the first round or early second, I think totally feasible, and they should be looking to do that.
I agree.
Honestly, what does the 12th pick even make at this point? That might be too expensive for what the Suns even want. Does the 12th pick
it's probably
have a starting...
$5-6 million? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably enough that makes sense. It's really the top 10 where you kind of have to pay a lot. And really, it's the top of the draft. You remember DeAndre Ayton? That was the first year that the salaries went up pretty dramatically.
Yeah, if you draft a Zachary Risacher number 1 overall, and then
it actually hurts your team.
And then you're paying a bum $15 million these days. It's, yeah. I got to look up the rookie scale because now I'm curious.
Yeah, and that is really interesting. I will say, as a general feeling, reading all of these things together, which let me just repeat them. The Suns will not trade future first to get into the first round. They want to keep Grayson, Royce, and Highsmith. Grayson drives. They plan to be aggressive with the MLE. Fleming, 25 minutes, and they're going to target teams to get higher in the second round, or maybe even higher. There's one little fear that comes in that, they like this team too much and they want to keep it together. You know, there's a little fear of that for me. That makes me feel like maybe they should be looking for bigger changes. The MLE thing, I think, is the only thing that flies in the face of that because they have to make big changes to even access the MLE. But
Yeah,
but the
that's
other
true.
part of it is, I don't know. It could be, posturing. It could be that we're just trying to read between the lines with Gambo here, which, by the way, that has helped us in the past. This is not like a dumb process to go through with the way Gambo talks. We've done this in previous years, and it's given us a pretty good idea of what they're going to do in the future. So, this is not, nitpicking just for the sake of nitpicking, just to create content. This has actually helped us in the past, and we can point at some of these and try and figure out if this is coming true. And Gambo can change it, too. That does happen when you have direct access to the front office the way he does. I'm just a little bit scared that they like the team too much and they're not going to make changes. And I like the team, too. And there's a lot of guys I want to see stay. But they didn't win a playoff game. They didn't really come close.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's going to be more teams trying next year. I know some people are tired of hearing me say that, but like more teams trying. The Suns beat up on the bad teams in the NBA.
They did.
Three or four of those teams beat the Suns, then they don't make the playoffs.
I mean, that more broadly speaks to my fear of, I don't even know if fear is the right word, but what the NBA is doing feels like they're kind of filtering teams. They're kind of pushing everyone towards the middle and like encouraging mediocrity in this sort of weird way. Like, don't get me wrong, it's good to have teams not tank makes
That's what
sense.
the Premier League does, kind of,
Yeah, well, at least we don't have relegation, and
They're
that would be a
calling the
disaster.
bottom of the draft the relegation zone now.
Yeah. Well, maybe
As
we
part of
should.
their-
Maybe we should just do that. Like if you get the first pick, you get the
Yeah.
first pick, but you get relegated.
And we never
How
see
would
the
that
King-
work?
We never see the Kings again. We'll never play the Kings.
Wemby had to actually play in the G League.
I'd watch that. Unfortunately, that would work on me.
By the way, to answer my question earlier, the 12th pick this year, they don't have the rookie scale for next year yet, at least not that I can see. But for this year, 12th overall pick, starting salary, $5.5 million. So
Yeah, that's
you're
fine.
pretty much exactly right.
Yeah.
But the first overall pick, starting salary, $14 million now.
It's crazy. And it goes
Year
up. It goes up pretty dramatically from there.
Year 4,
Yeah.
they're at $19 million
It's crazy.
for the first pick. So you better get it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't pick DeAndre Ayton. Let me ask you this before we go here. You want the Knicks to win a title, right? We're just
I do.
assuming that out of the 3 teams left. Do you think they will?
No. But I'll root for them. I'm happy even for Landry Shamet, who was my favorite.
Me too.
Like, I just got to put a hand up and be honest. Landry Shamet was my favorite punching bag. He was the Royce O'Neal for me of the Suns 3 or 4 years ago, who it was just too easy because he was a not particularly athletic guy who, I didn't really care about all the times he wanted to talk about his chaser defense or whatever. And when he would miss open shots, he was an easy target. But he's played some great basketball. Obviously super thrilled for Mikal Bridges, who has taken a lot of flack from Knicks fans over the years.
Mm-hmm. And has
Because
played
of-
like their second best player. In the
Right,
Eastern
but-
Conference Finals, he might have been.
But just because of that trade and what was sent out to get him. So yeah, I'm really happy for the Knicks, and I hope they win, and I will root for them. And I just don't think I don't know, man.
I look forward to
they need a miracle.
repeating the Landry Shamet conversation with you next year, but about Royce O'Neal and whatever team he's on. And you saying, I'm even happy for Royce O'Neal and what he's about to do with the Indiana Pacers.
He's gonna be. He might be on the Spurs. He might be like their Harrison Barnes replacement or something. And
Yes.
They trade us like 4 second-round picks for him.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it could happen.
You like Harrison Barnes as a free agent?
I don't hate that, actually. I think he was pretty good for the Spurs this year. They just had other guys that were better. But I don't hate that, no. But
I think he lost minutes to like Champagny at a certain
it was
point in
Champagny.
the season.
He started, and then Champagny was placed in the starting lineup over him, so that was the story there. But yeah, I think I'm with you. I think the Knicks probably. I think the weird thing about the Knicks that I just want to say before we go here is they're killing teams, and they did it for the last 2 rounds over and over again. And it's hard to know, is this just teams that both teams came off a 7-game series and maybe ran out of juice, and the Knicks just still had it and they were able to steamroll? Or did the Knicks really hit another level that they're actually much better than we even realize? And it's really difficult to know that in the playoffs because they play the same team over and over again, and it just could be two convenient collapses at the right time for the Knicks. Although they're playing well regardless, it could just be that the other teams just hit walls that they could not fight through. Or are they really this good? And like, if they're really this good, they're killing teams, then they could beat the other teams, especially if they come in injured. You know, like OKC comes in injured without AJ Mitchell and without Jalen Williams, which maybe they're playing by then, but maybe they don't. And I can see the Knicks winning there. And maybe even, I don't know, maybe even the Spurs. I'm really rooting for them, though.
Who was it in Moneyball? Was it Brad Pitt or Jonah Hill who says, if we win with this team, we'll have changed the game?
I don't remember. Should we do like a live Moneyball watch on our?
We should. I think we should because we quote it like we quote it basically every other week.
And I do watch it every year already, so we.
I do think if the Knicks win with this team, it's a little dramatic to say they'll have changed the game because it's more so just that Adam Silver changed the game for them. But I think it kind of like just speaks to the parity now that anyone can win, and no one is encouraged to build a dynasty anymore, because as soon as you think you have, like, if you're OKC and theoretically you lose this series, which again I think is like super, super improbable, but if it happens, all this time you're thinking like, okay, I'm going to compile all my assets. I'm going to get all these contracts lined up perfectly so that all of these guys can hit their, you know, third, fourth, fifth seasons at just the right time. And then you lose a series like this to the Knicks, and then all of a sudden everyone's too expensive and you can't keep them together anyway. Mm-hmm. It's just really fascinating the direction that the NBA is taking.
It is.
But the Knicks have a lot of work to do before we can have those conversations.
That's right. All right. We will be back with a Patreon episode later this week and a regular feed after that. So join our Patreon, patreon.com/thetimeline. Get an extra podcast every week, including in the off season, and maybe even apparently a Moneyball related podcast coming up sometime soon, which, by the way, I'm serious about. I'm really down to do that.
We're going to be live podding from the back rooms later this week for our Patreon episode.
Yeah, oh man. That'd be cool. But yes, join there. Join our Discord there as well if you'd like. Patreon members get access to our Discord, of course. We appreciate you all. Hey, thanks to Gambo for the slop this week. Maybe we'll have some more by our next episode, and hopefully a fun one coming up on the Made feed next. We appreciate you all. Back soon.